Hello everyone. Tonight, we're going to slink quietly through the golden sands of ancient Egypt. Not as tourists, not even as pharaohs, but as those four-legged little divas who somehow convinced an entire civilization to worship them. Yep, you're going to become a cat. The Nile's lazy waters ripple beneath the moonlight, and the air is thick with the smell of lotus flowers and mud brick dust. You're padding along the edge of a reed-filled canal ears, twitching at every splash, your sleek fur catching the glow from distant oil lamps. Somewhere in the shadows, something hisses and you freeze. It's not just fish and frogs down here. Snakes slither in the warm dark, some venomous enough to drop a cow. You, however, are a cat, small, silent, and deadly. But here's the kicker. You're not just any cat. You're an Egyptian cat, which means, frankly, you're kind of a big deal. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and the time right now in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You slink past two humans, an old man in a linen kilt, and a girl chasing after a runaway goose. Neither of them pays you much mind, but you hear it in their voices: affection, familiarity, respect. You're not just tolerated here, you're welcomed. Your feline ancestors first wandered into this land thousands of years ago, probably chasing rodents that were snacking on grain stores. Historians still argue whether it was humans who first tamed cats, or if it was cats who tamed humans by purring just right at the exact moment grain was in jeopardy. One mainstream theory goes like this: as the Egyptians mastered agriculture and built food storage systems, they inadvertently created rodent buffets. And where there are rodents, there are cats. But here's the fringe tidbit: some believe wildcats actually guided humans toward food-rich areas. Like you might have been a prehistoric food scout with a tail. You cross over into a small farming village, now perched near the Nile's edge. The air is rich with the smell of wet earth and dung-fueled cooking fires. You curl up near a threshold as a family prepares for dinner. They've set out food for the household cat, okay. It's you, and the scraps tonight are especially fishy. Lucky day. It's no accident you're well fed here. Cats in ancient Egypt were treated as both pest control and spiritual companions. You weren't just appreciated for keeping rats away. You were seen as a protective presence, a living guardian of the household. The daughter of the house, maybe 9 years old, reaches down and brushes your fur with a stick she's carefully wound linen around. Homemade brush. Very Etsy core. Suddenly, something rustles near the granary. You're up and bolting, tail low, ears high. A rat, no. 2. You leap, claws flashing, and the chase begins. Through baskets and under clay jars, your heart thumps with the thrill of the hunt. It's a game, yes, but also survival, yours and theirs. You manage to swipe one, deliver a clean neck bite, and prance back to the doorway like a tiny lion. The old man chuckles. Sekhmet would be proud, he murmurs. His daughter beams proud of you like you're her little warrior. You don't know who Sekhmet is, not exactly, but the name pops up a lot. Turns out she's a lioness, goddess of war and protection. Cats like you, small, agile, often unpredictable, are believed to carry a bit of that lion spirit in miniature. Later that night, when everyone's asleep and the moon glows like a peeled grape in the sky, you sneak outside again. Other cats dot the village, some sleek like you, others scarred from nightly brawls, but all of you are tolerated. No one throws stones, no one shouts, And, unlike in some other ancient cultures, no one's looking to turn you into a stew. You pad along a row of mud brick homes peeking into open courtyards. In one, a woman's whispering a prayer with a cat perched near her lap. The incense curls like a spirit toward the stars. In another, a man sketches a feline figure into the side of a pot. Your likeness is everywhere on walls, scrolls even carved into little ivory toys children lose in the reeds. Still, life isn't all mice and milk. You dodge a crocodile today. Yep. Just casually lurking at the water's edge like it owns the place. Egypt has a lot going for it, like grain culture and eyeliner, but it also has one major problem: creatures that want to eat you. Snakes, crocodiles, even some birds of prey. You've got the reflexes, sure, but no 9 lives here. One wrong step and you're a meat snack with stripes. So, what makes Egypt the perfect place for a cat balance? The humans need you. You need them. The granaries get protected, and in return you get food affection and, honestly, a pretty cozy life. The bond between you and the humans is quiet, strong, and ancient. And while dogs in other parts of the world were trained to guard or hunt, cats in Egypt were different. Not trained, not forced, just respected. And yes, the occasional cat goes rogue. There's that gray Tom with one eye who keeps stealing from the fish stalls. But even he gets away with it most of the time. Because even in his scruffy, rule-breaking way, he's still part of this civilization's harmony. As you curl up for the night on a sun-warmed stone step, your eyes half-lidded, and your ears still twitching at every breeze you think not bad for a once wild creature. Not bad at all. You've clawed your way into the very heart of Egyptian life. Not just as a pet, but as a symbol, a protector, a legend with a tale. You blink awake as the sun begins to roast the Nile Valley like it's prepping dinner for Ra himself. The village is already buzzing goats, bleating pots, clanging sandals, slapping through sand, but you naturally move at your own pace. One stretch, one yawn, a quick lick behind the ear, and you're ready to survey your tiny kingdom. Today, you sneak into a granary. It's cool inside, shaded and silent, the thick walls built from sun-baked mud brick. You slink between stacks of grain jars, every step a whisper. The smell of barley fills your nose, but there's another scent layered underneath, musky, skittery, and slightly offensive. Mice. Now you understand why you're allowed in here when others aren't. You're not just tolerated, you're invited. You're security. And, unlike the sleepy guard boy outside, you're actually doing your job. You hear the faint scrabble of tiny feet and freeze. Your pupils narrow. There's movement behind one of the lower baskets. With a soft growl building in your throat, you pounce. Dust kicks up as the mouse escapes barely, but you're relentless. You zigzag through jars, tails flicking like antennae, and then snap, you catch the little thief under your paw. Humans cheer when they see the mouse dangle from your jaws. One woman claps like you've just saved her firstborn. You drop the body, swish your tail, and casually stroll away like it was nothing. But really, that moment earns you another notch on your status collar. Historians still argue whether cats like you were officially trained by ancient Egyptians. Most agree you weren't in the fetch and rollover sense, but there's no denying cats were bred selectively over time. Egyptians seemed to favor traits like friendliness, agility, and those piercing golden eyes that practically hypnotize people into doing your bidding. Mainstream records suggest that by around 2000 BCE, cats were fully integrated into domestic life. They were present in homes, temples, and even traveling with Egyptian traders. But what fascinates modern archaeologists and anyone who's ever had a cat sit on their keyboard is How early these humans recognized your value. They didn't try to change you. They adapted to you. And then there's this quirky tidbit: in some households, cats had their own feeding schedules. Special bowls, dedicated servants, yes, servants, and even musical entertainment. That's right. Flute players would sometimes serenade wealthy families at mealtime, and if the family cat happened to be lounging nearby, well, she got the show too. You hop up to a windowsill and stretch in a patch of light. Below, a young boy is sketching with a piece of charcoal on a shard of pottery, what they call an ostracon. He's drawing you. Or, well, a version of you that looks like a chunky sausage with ears, but you appreciate the effort. In his little scrawl, he writes a prayer to Bastet, the cat-headed goddess. "Keep our home safe," he says aloud. "Keep the rats away. Let our cat live long." You don't know what any of that means, but your ears twitch when he says long life. Because you've heard of cats who live very long in this land, especially if they're pampered by priests or nobles. Still, village life isn't all praise and pampering. You've got competition. That orange tabby from across the alley, always trying to sneak into your turf. And don't get us started on the lanky black cat who yowls at the moon like he's composing feline opera. The humans tolerate all of you, but only one cat can be the queen of a courtyard. You leap down, chasing a butterfly through sunbeams, and end up near the butcher's stall. The smell is heavenly raw meat, spices the faint tang of blood. You sit perfectly still, tail wrapped neatly around your feet. The butcher eyes you, mutters something about "not again," then tosses you a sliver of liver. You purr like you meant to win this. But not everyone shares his generosity. One grumpy scribe chases you off when you nap too close to his reed pens. He says your fur gets in the ink. You respond by knocking over his ink jar when he isn't looking. Classic cat diplomacy. In the corner of the village, there's an old woman who whispers stories to her cat while weaving linen. You like sitting nearby and pretending to nap while she talks. Today, she speaks of cats who guided spirits through the duat, the Egyptian underworld. "Not all cats walk in daylight," she murmurs. "Some guide souls at night." That fringe belief isn't in every scroll, but it's whispered across centuries. Some Egyptians believed cats could see spirits, or even be spirits themselves. After all, who else can sit staring into an empty corner for 3 hours like they're communing with a ghost? As the day cools and long shadows stretch across the baked streets, you find a boy crying behind a stall. His dog. Yes, some people do have dogs, was bitten by a snake. You sit near him quietly, not touching, not purring, just being there. And slowly the boy begins to calm. You don't know what to do with grief, but you know how to be present. It's a gift not every creature has. You return home just as dinner's being served. The family's laughing tonight. Someone traded a painted bowl for a jug of beer, and the mother made her famous lentil stew. You curl up beside the father's feet, warm and full, and listen to the clatter of clay bowls and the hum of conversation. No one says it aloud, but you're more than just decoration. You're family. You're part of the home's rhythm, its story. One day, someone might paint you on a wall, or carve your likeness into a small figure they keep by their bed. And long after you're gone, your descendants will still curl in the same sunspots, prowl the same alleyways, and flick their tails with the same knowing sass. Because in Egypt, the cat isn't just a pet. It's a legacy. The sun is barely up, but the smell of incense already swirls through the village streets like a slow-moving spirit. You rise not because you must, but because you feel like it. You stretch on the rooftop where you spent the night, your paws arch into the sky, tail curling like a question mark, and then you begin your daily rounds. You hop down from roof to courtyard tail, brushing over crumbling clay. Below you, a woman arranges her altar. She lights a cone of frankincense, bows her head, and hums a tune you've heard every morning for weeks. Today, she places a tiny bowl of milk next to the offering bread. It's for Bastet, of course, but let's be honest, it's also for you. You pad over, casually sniff the bowl, and take a sip. Not because you're thirsty, because it's yours. In homes across Egypt, cats like you are folded into daily rituals. You're not just present during spiritual moments, you're central to them. The boundary between cat and spirit, between animal and deity, gets murky fast. Especially when everyone seems to believe you're walking around with one paw in this world and one in the next. You curl up beside the altar, letting the heat of the clay warm your belly. The family cat present for every offering. Even the smallest village home has a corner like this, an altar tucked behind a curtain, or etched into a wall niche where families pray for protection, fertility, and peace. Mainstream archaeological findings support this. Household shrines often included tiny statues of Bastet, frequently accompanied by a curled-up cat at their base. These aren't just ornaments, they're touchstones of belief. One fringe theory says that some of these statues were modeled after specific cats, beloved pets immortalized in clay and bronze, not generic representations. Like ancient pet portraits, but in full goddess drag. You hop down and follow the family's youngest daughter as she heads to the courtyard. She wears a string of blue faience beads and sings off-key. In her hand is a painted shard. She's drawn a little stick figure cat with giant ears and a fish. That's you. Probably. She tells you secrets. You don't understand the words, but the tone is soft, reverent. She believes you can carry her wishes to the gods. And maybe she's right. The Egyptians had a word for cat mew or miyut, mimicking the sound of a meow. There's something wonderfully cheeky about that, naming you based on your own voice. It's affectionate, practical, and just a little bit magical. You respond to her when she calls a Mayu, not because you're trained, but because you want to. You follow her to a neighbor's home. The air smells of new-baked bread and herbs crushed underfoot. A sick child lies sleeping in the corner, a poultice pressed to her forehead. Her mother notices you and gently ushers you inside. "Stay," she whispers. "You bring calm. That's another thing about you. Some believe cats ward off bad spirits, that your presence alone, your purring, your stillness, your unblinking gaze can drive illness away. Not all of Egypt agrees, of course. Some priests think only formal rituals can purify a house. But others, they swear a cat curled at the foot of a sickbed can do what no spell can. Historians still argue whether cats were officially part of medical practice or simply adopted into it through superstition and observation. Either way, you're often nearby when healing happens. By mid-morning, you've claimed your usual sun patch on the roof belly, up legs akimbo. From below, you hear a man laughing. "Look at that," he says. "Not even Pharaoh rests so easy." And maybe that's the heart of it. You, small as you are, carry a weight far larger than your paws suggest. Your grace, vigilance, protection. And sometimes you're the household jester. Knock over a bowl of lentils and you'll still get your ears scratched. A priest passes through the village this afternoon. His robe is pristine white. His scent unmistakably temple. Lotus oils something metallic. He pauses to speak to the mother of the house, then nods toward you. He offers a bronze amulet in the shape of Bastet's face. A gift. The mother places it near the altar. The daughter beams. You blink slowly. Approval granted. That priest likely comes from a nearby temple, maybe one dedicated to Bastet herself. These temples sometimes sponsor visits to outlying communities, checking for omens, blessing families, and delivering amulets. And in many of them, real live cats roam the sacred halls. The connection between your kind and the divine isn't just decorative, it's institutional. Some temples keep cats almost like staff. You're both mascot and symbol, a living embodiment of the goddess's watchful eye. Temple cats are fed honored, sometimes even buried within the grounds. You've never been to a temple yourself, not yet, but you've heard stories from the other cats. Stone floors warm from sunbeam servants who offer fish, and visitors who drop to their knees when you walk by. You're already worshipped in this village, but there you'd be royalty. Later in the day, as the sun dips low and the shadows stretch, you return to the granary. Another mouse, another kill. The family cheers again. It's not just about dinner security anymore. It's tradition. A cat defending the grain is more than just a useful pest controller. It's a symbol of cosmic balance. Chaos kept in check by a tiny carnivore. That's how the Egyptians saw the world. Ma'at, the concept of truth, order, and harmony, wasn't maintained by might alone. It needed quiet, persistent action. Like a cat silently stalking a mouse to preserve a household's grain. You nap on the threshold again, twitching now and then in your sleep. A dream. Or maybe something older. A memory passed down through fur and instinct. You see Golden Hall's walls covered in cat-headed figures, and voices chanting your name. You wake just as night falls. The daughter places a flower near the altar and kisses your head. "Sleep well, Mayut," she says. You will, because you've done your job, not just catching mice, but bringing peace, calm, and a little divine mystery to this small corner of Egypt. You stir awake under a sky smeared with starlight stretched across the Nile like a dark velvet canopy. Crickets buzz softly. A breeze carries the scent of warm stone river water and the faintest trace of roasted duck from someone's late dinner. You blink once, then twice, and stretch like you're the queen of the cosmos, which here in Egypt isn't all that far from the truth. You trot toward the edge of the village, past shuttered homes and quiet courtyards drawn by something instinctual. A procession is forming at the foot of the palm-lined path. Torches flicker. People murmur. They're dressed in ceremonial linen heads, bowed, holding lotus flowers and jars of perfume. This isn't an ordinary night. Tonight, a funeral procession prepares to travel to the necropolis across the river. The recently deceased was a scribe, respected and kind. You remember him, he always let you nap under his writing table, even when your tail knocked over his scrolls. So, naturally, you follow. You move silently between the feet of mourners, avoiding the sandals and skirts your body weaving like a ribbon. No one shoos you away. In fact, a few step aside when they see you. One woman whispers, "It's a good sign. She's come to guide the spirit." In ancient Egypt, that wasn't just poetry. It was belief. Cats were seen as guardians of thresholds, not only doors and grain stores, but thresholds between life and death. Bastet herself wasn't just a goddess of beauty and music. She was also a protector of souls, capable of ferocious strength when the time came to defend what mattered. Mainstream scholars agree that cats often appear in funerary art, sometimes curled beneath the feet of the deceased, or perched beside protective deities. Their presence is more than decorative. It's symbolic, sometimes even sacred. A few fringe thinkers suggest cats were intentionally brought into funeral rituals, not just by accident or habit, but as participants. Animal companions, yes, but also spiritual buffers against chaos. You arrive at the burial site just as the first prayers rise into the cool night. The tomb is modest, painted with care, stocked with food, clothes, amulets, and a few trinkets you recognize. One is a tiny cat-shaped pendant, well-worn and dulled by years of thumb-rubbing. You pause at the threshold of the tomb. Then, slowly, you step inside. The priest doesn't stop you. No one does. In fact, someone begins to hum one of Bastet's sacred songs softly, like a lullaby. You curl up beside the wall, your body half in shadow, half in torchlight. The mourners speak of eternal life, of Ra's journey through the underworld of rebirth. One young boy glances at you and says, "She'll keep him company." There's a tenderness to the moment. Not just grief, but gratitude. Gratitude that someone like you, a creature Egyptians believed could see what others could not, would accompany a loved one into the unknown. Historians still argue whether specific cats were entombed with their owners for this reason. Some say yes, especially in higher status families. Others suggest it was symbolic only, with cat statues standing in for real companions. Either way, the message was clear. The cat protects in life and maybe even after. You don't stay long. When the prayers fade and the offerings are placed, you rise. Give yourself one thorough lick behind the ear to maintain appearances and step outside. The stars are clearer now. The procession dissolves into the night lanterns, bobbing like fireflies. You follow the path back home, passing another cat on the way, a sleek gray one with one torn ear. You give each other a look. No words, of course, just understanding. You've both walked sacred ground tonight. Back in the village, the daughter waits for you at the gate. She's been sitting with her legs crossed, a little basket of figs by her side. She lights up when she sees you. "Where did you go?" she asks, even though she knows you won't answer. She rubs your head right between the ears, and you allow it this once. Then you hop up to the wall and balance like a tightrope, walker tail flicking. Nearby, a small group gathers for a nighttime story. The old woman you like is there, weaving by lamplight. She speaks of ancient times when cats could walk between the worlds, freely slipping into dreams, slipping back out again before dawn. Her voice lowers. There's a tale, she says, that when a soul is lost in the duat, a cat appears its eyes like twin moons. It guides the spirit through the dark, across the lake of fire, past the serpent coils, and into the judgment hall. It never speaks. It never stops. It just walks. You curl your paws under your chest and blink slowly. She continues. And when the soul reaches the scales of Ma'at and their heart is weighed, the cat disappears. Its task done. A boy scoffs. That's just a story. The woman smiles. Maybe. You're not saying it's true. You're just saying, you've never been lost in the duat, have you? You spend the rest of the night curled on a warm roof, watching the stars. In the distance, a jackal howls. Somewhere, a boat creaks in the current. And just before sleep pulls you under, you hear the faintest meow echo from the necropolis, low, proud, and completely unafraid of the dark. Morning creeps in, soft and gold, dusting the village rooftops in a glow that makes everything look like it's been freshly baked. You stir, stretch your paws out with a yawn that feels bigger than your body, and flick your tail once for dramatic effect. Then you leap down, quiet as a whisper, as always. Your first stop, the fisherman's hut. He's predictable, bless him. Always up early, always whistling that off-key tune, and always leaving behind one small fish accidentally, of course. You catch him winking at you as you trot off with it in your mouth. He pretends not to notice. You pretend not to care. This isn't just a morning snack. It's a ritual part of the silent contract between humans and cats here in Egypt. They offer food and shelter. You offer grace mystery, and when you feel like it, pest control. And beneath that, a layer of reverence so deep it could flood like the Nile. You duck into a granary, your secret shortcut across the village, and it hits you the scent of grain, heavy and rich, mixed with a more familiar stench mice. You hear them skitter tiny claws against clay. Not today, friends. Not while you're on patrol. In a flash, you're chasing. A swipe here, a pounce there, and the threat is neutralized. The worker nearby claps not out of fear, but gratitude. Another victory for the little huntress, he says, chuckling. Cats aren't just welcome in places like these. You're essential. Grain is Egypt's lifeblood. It's traded, stored, measured, taxed. Lose it to rodents and you're not just hungry, you're poor, powerless, possibly even punished. That's where you come in. You and your kin are the unacknowledged guardians of the entire food system. Mainstream historians agree. Cats were deliberately brought into granaries, homes, and even ships for pest control. You're a four-legged security system. But you're also so much more. Because this is where you shine. You're not barking orders. You're not tied up with rope. You don't even ask for permission. You just are present, poised, and purring at the heart of it all. Later that morning, a scribe passes through the grain store. He's tracking harvests, double-checking inventory, and wiping sweat from his brow. He pauses when he sees you lounging in a sunbeam belly full and whiskers twitching. Good omen, he says, nodding to the overseer. That's another thing. You've shifted from simple utility to symbol. People don't just tolerate you, they look for you. A cat at the gate safe travel. A cat watching your meeting. A deal sealed with cosmic approval. A cat cleaning herself before breakfast. Well, that probably just means you've got fish breath. Some scholars say cats were considered extensions of Mahat herself, keeping balance by keeping pests at bay, both literal and metaphorical. Others say that's reading too much into it. You say shrug. Either way, you like the attention. You wander toward the temple district, not the grand ones, but the smaller shrines tucked near the edge of town. You pass priests in white linen children playing chase and one boy who insists on naming you Pharaoh of Whiskers. You allow it. Temporarily. A young acolyte stands at the door of a Bastet shrine, sweeping the threshold with careful strokes. He sees you and immediately stops. Come in, sacred one, he says. You oblige. The shrine smells like cedar oil and old ash. Inside, flickering lamps cast shadows on the painted walls, scenes of music feasts and battles, where a lion-headed goddess stands tall, flanked by cats in mid-pounce. Offerings line the shelves, wine bread, tiny carved toys, and naturally more than one bronze cat. You leap gracefully onto the altar. The acolyte doesn't flinch. He simply bows and places a lotus flower beside you. He begins to chant quietly, rhythmically. You close your eyes, pretending not to listen, but of course you do. The words are ancient, wrapped in reverence, each syllable, a thread pulling you deeper into that soft, divine stillness. There are rumors you know. Some villagers whisper that cats can see the gods walking among mortals, that your eyes reflect things others can't see. that when you purr, it's not for pleasure, it's a signal to the heavens, a celestial hum. Historians still debate whether Bastet's worship was a grassroots movement that trickled up into temple formality, or if it came from royal influence downward. What's certain is that both peasant and priest treated cats not only as divine messengers, but as the message itself. You curl up on the altar tail over your nose. A young girl peeks in, wide-eyed. She gasps and whispers to her mother. She's inside the goddess's house. The mother hushes her, but you hear the awe in her voice too. "Let her be," she says. "It's a blessing." Later in the afternoon, while the air grows heavy with heat, and the Nile reflects the sky like liquid silver, you find a place beneath a fig tree. You dream lightly, half asleep, half tuned to the rustle of wings and footsteps. In your dream, there's music again. The kind you've never heard with your ears, only with your bones. When you wake, an old man is sitting nearby scribbling with a reed pen. He glances at you. They say when a cat sleeps beside you, the words flow easier. He mutters. He's writing a hymn. To Bastet. Naturally. You get up and circle his legs once before moving on. You don't need thanks. You accept tributes. Evening returns with lavender skies and dinner smoke curling into the breeze. Families gather, voices rise, and someone plays a sistrum, its jingling rhythm floating above the chatter like a playful ghost. And you find your usual spot atop the granary roof, high above the worlded tail wrapped neatly around your feet. Below, the village moves like clockwork. It's calm, fed, protected. You did that, all without saying a word. The moon is full tonight, so fat and round it looks like it might roll right out of the sky and splash into the Nile. You watch it from the rooftop, paws tucked neatly beneath you, tail flicking slowly with thought. But you're not alone up here. A boy has climbed the ladder barefoot, breathless, holding something wrapped in cloth. He approaches quietly, like he's not sure if you'll bolt or bite. You don't move. You just wait. "I brought you this," he says, unwrapping the bundle to reveal dried fish and a little dish of milk. You allow yourself one delicate sniff before nibbling. It's decent. Not excellent, but the effort counts. He sits beside you, legs dangling over the edge. "My father said I should always feed the cats," he says. "He said it brings luck." You blink once. And there it is again, the reverence. The way people here fold you into the rhythms of daily life like morning bread or evening prayers. Feeding you isn't just a chore, it's an act of devotion. In ancient Egypt, giving food to cats wasn't something people did just to avoid meows or tail flicks to the face at 2 a.m. It was spiritual, a blessing exchanged for a blessing. You keep the rats away. They feed you. You ward off evil spirits. They give you a saucer of milk and maybe name their kid after you. Mainstream archaeological finds include small clay bowls near thresholds, often containing fish bones. These weren't for people. They were for cats, placed with intention. And, more than once, hieroglyphs on walls mention offerings to the guardian of the house, clearly feline, clearly loved. You wander through the village again, this time just after sunset. Lanterns swing on hooks, casting golden glows. The scent of lentils and onions drifts through the air. You pass a home where a woman kneels to light incense. Her daughter chases after you with a scrap of cloth tied to a stick. You indulge her for exactly 7 seconds. She giggles, delighted. She played with me. That means we'll have a good week. Okay, maybe 8 seconds. But here's the funny part. While most people feed you for fortune or pest control, some take it much further. A merchant down by the riverbank has built a tiny shrine behind his stall. Nothing fancy, just a carved wooden cat tucked into a niche surrounded by dried flowers and shiny stones. He swears his business only boomed after a ginger cat not unlike yourself, though slightly less majestic, began sleeping under his crates. He feeds that cat first every morning, before his own breakfast, before his wife. Honestly, it's a little awkward. You slip behind the stall now as he closes up shop. The ginger cat is there dozing on a bed of folded linen. He sees you, blinks once, and goes back to sleep. You approve. He's doing well. Not far from here, a scholar is debating a visiting priest about the origins of this cat obsession. You perch on a windowsill above them and listen. They were worshipped because of their behavior, the priest insists. So clean, so independent, so controlled. It reminded us of the gods. But some cats are wild destructive, the scholar replies. Doesn't that contradict it? Ah, says the priest, that's the point. Balance, duality. Cats walk between control and chaos, just like Bastet. You yawn and stretch dramatically, as if on cue. Historians still argue whether cat veneration started purely out of utility, or if it was always tangled up in myth. Was it their rodent-slaying prowess that earned them shrines? Or were they spiritual from the start, simply revealing it through their behavior? Either way, one thing's clear. People here don't just like cats. They depend on them. Spiritually, emotionally, and practically. You're not just their pet. You're a mirror reflecting their hopes, fears, and reverence for the balance of nature. Later that evening, you wander to the edge of the village. A traveler has set up camp just outside the palm grove, lighting a fire and muttering to himself. He's from the Delta, you gather, based on the accent and the fact he's still swatting at mosquitoes like he's surprised they exist. He sees you and freezes. Oh no, he whispers. It's a desert cat. You pause. This again. Some believe desert cats are different, spiritually potent, lucky, but untouchable. You could milk that fear. You don't, but you could. Instead, you saunter right past him, brushing his ankle just enough to startle, then leap onto a nearby rock and settle in like you own the world. He panics, rummaging through his bag, pulling out a dried date and placing it on the ground like a peace offering. Smart man. Later, after the fire dies down and the stars return in their quiet majesty, you return to the rooftops. The boy from before is there again, asleep this time. His hand dangles beside him and you curl beside it. Not too close, just enough to let him feel the warmth. Because in the end, it's not just about food or pest control. It's about presence. You're here. And that, somehow, is enough. Dawn hasn't quite cracked open the sky yet, but the world is already humming with life. A chorus of frogs along the canals, the low grumble of oxen carts, the whisper of linen robes brushing against sand-packed streets. And of course, you slipping through it all like a shadow dipped in moonlight. You're heading to the house of the priestess today. Not just any priestess. The high servant of Bastet. A big deal. She lives in a house near the eastern wall where sunrise strikes her doorway first. Fitting, really. The goddess of the sun's protective glare would expect no less. And you've got your routine. A little hop over a clay wall, a dash across a garden dotted with blue lotus. Then the dramatic pause, perched like a statue before the door creaks open, and a soft voice says, "She's here." Inside it smells like frankincense and sweet dates. The priestess is already waiting seated beside a basin of water, her kohl-lined eyes catching the light. "Come," she says, and you do. You're not just a visitor here. You're a ritual. The priestess lays out her tools, amulets, oils, papyrus spells, But she doesn't begin until you've taken your place. Always the same spot, the left side of the altar, curled into a sleepy croissant shape. Only then does she chant draw symbols in the air and offer words to the goddess Bastet. Mainstream historians often note that temple cats weren't just hangers-on, they had official roles. Some bore collars, others received offerings or were recorded in temple ledgers. Cats were treated as assistants, even witnesses in sacred rites. Today's ceremony is for protection. A merchant's daughter fell ill last week, and her mother has brought a bundle of linens and tiny golden fish trinkets as an offering. The girl watches you with wide, feverish eyes. She looks at the cat, not me, the mother says, worried. "That's good," replies the priestess. The goddess sees through those eyes. You blink slowly. Yep, still got it. After the family leaves, the priestess feeds you slivers of duck and rubs behind your ears in that exact spot that turns your bones into liquid. "You know," she murmurs, "when I was a girl, I had a dream that Bastet came to me as a cat with your fur. That's why I built this altar. Because of you." Okay, you purr a little. But here's where things get even more curious. Later, just outside the shrine, a clay merchant is repairing cracked figurines. You nose around his pile of discards, sniffing broken tails and chipped paws. He notices. "Looking for your own statue, eh?" He chuckles. "I've made hundreds. Cats, curled cats, stretching cats with earrings. Cats sitting on lotus thrones." He points to a new one glazed with green faience, the color of rebirth. "This one's going to the tomb of a woman who asked for 3 cats to be buried with her 2 statues and her real cat. Poor thing. Doesn't know she's a funerary gift." You twitch your ear. There it is, the dark edge to all this adoration. See, being loved in ancient Egypt came with perks, bowls of milk, fish, scraps, head scratches. But it also came with consequences. Historians still debate how widespread the practice was, but records and burials show that some cats were deliberately interred with their owners. Not always as a coincidence of timing. Sometimes, let's say your expiration date was aligned with theirs. You pass a house where a girl is singing to her cat badly but sweetly. She's holding it like a baby, swaying gently. Her mother smiles. She says they'll be buried together, she jokes. Maybe she'll make the cat a queen in the afterlife. Cute. Unless the cat hears that and starts sweating. Then again, there is a strange honor to it. Imagine being so beloved that someone wants to carry your spirit into the next life. You, with your paws and whiskers and nonchalant tail flicks. You, the eternal companion. Not just a pet, a soul escort. You visit the tomb district just after the sun hits its highest point when most humans are dozing in shaded corners. The necropolis is quiet. Empty jars line the path offerings long since eaten by time. You step lightly between stones, past jackal statues and reed-bound stelae. And then you see them, tiny sarcophagi shaped like cats. One after another lined like soldiers. Some with painted eyes, some with real bones inside, some just symbolic empty but heavy with meaning. You jump atop one and gaze out over the cemetery. This, you realize, is love. Strange human love. The kind that doesn't know how to let go. So it tries to preserve, to wrap, to embalm, to hold on. Even if it means tying you to eternity. Down the hill, an embalmer's apprentice is talking with a scholar from Memphis. They're arguing over the purpose of mummified cats. They were offerings, says the apprentice, gifts to Bastet. Hundreds of them sacrificed to gain her favor. No counters the scholar. Some were genuine pets. others symbols of fertility or protection. The dead didn't need a pile of cats, they needed what cats represented. They bicker until the apprentice notices you and immediately hushes. She's watching. Good. Let them wonder. As evening rolls in, you make your way back to the priestess's home. She's outside now, pouring a libation into the soil beneath a sycamore fig. For the cat who died last week, she says. He served the goddess for 16 years. You sit beside her. I hope he walks beside her now, she whispers. You look at the horizon, where the last light kisses the edge of the sky. And you wonder just for a moment if you've walked there too, in another life, on golden sand that never burned your feet, in a world where every step you take leaves a paw print that glows. One thing's for sure. In this world, this place, you are more than a cat. You are history, walking on silent feet. You move like a breeze through the market district, weaving between baskets of lentils and stacks of dyed linen, past a man shouting about goose liver, and another trying to sell fish that definitely smells past its prime. Children dart after each other chasing beetles or tossing palm seeds. A woman nearly spills her basket when you brush against her ankle. You scared me, she scolds, then offers you a fig. You don't want it, but you accept the gesture. That's the thing about you. You're everywhere and nowhere at once, part of the town, yet separate from it. So much so that when you vanish for a few hours, people notice. They wonder where you've gone, what you're up to, and whether it means something. That's not pet behavior. That's cult leader behavior. Speaking of cults today, we follow you into the deeper alleys of Bubastis. And it's not just a regular city. It's the city of Bastet, her holy capital. If cats had a Vatican, this would be it, complete with temples, carved with feline forms, and streets that feel like they were built for paws instead of feet. The temple district smells different here. Resins, oils, and fresh-cut lotus. Giant columns rise like stalks in a swamp, painted with eyes and paws and scepters. You slink between them, past a priest humming a hymn, past baskets of dried papyrus scrolls, and into the temple proper. The courtyard is alive with motion cats everywhere, on ledges, on laps, on altars, some napping, others pawing at feathers tied to sticks by acolytes. And here's the best part. No one shoos them. No one tells them down or no. If a cat curls up in the middle of a ritual procession, the ritual waits. Mainstream historians agree Bubastis was the religious heart of feline worship. During major festivals, tens of thousands of pilgrims came by boat offering tribute to Bastet, and by extension to cats. They brought food, amulets, carved statues, coins, and sometimes live cats to donate to the temple. This was love on a national scale. You leap up a staircase and find yourself eye to eye with a mural. It shows Bastet in full glory, lion-headed, one paw raised a sistrum in the other hand. But beside her, a real, unassuming cat, striped, lounging, and smug. That's what makes this religion different. It's not just about the gods. It's about the everyday magic they share space with. You. You wander deeper into the temple, down hallways lined with carved stone and flickering lamps. A priestess murmurs a prayer as she brushes a sleeping kitten. An older cat lies curled on a cushion beside a shrine, eyes half-lidded, tail twitching in a dream. And then there's the inner sanctum. Few humans are allowed here, but you, of course, you're welcome. You pad softly across polished stone, past an obsidian statue of Bastet herself. It's sleek, elegant, with inlaid emerald eyes that gleam in the lamplight. Offerings clutter the floor jewels, fish bones, papyrus prayers rolled into tubes. Someone's even left a toy mouse carved from ivory. You sniff it once. Meh. Nearby, a young priest is preparing for a ritual. He lights incense traces, shapes in the air, and then pauses to watch you settle beside the altar. He doesn't say anything. He just nods. Later, back in the courtyard, things grow more festive. This is no ordinary day, it's the Feast of Bastet. Music spills from flutes and drums. Pilgrims carry decorated boats filled with flowers and food, parading them through the streets. Women chant, men dance, and a few cats actually join in, not entirely by choice, but not bothered either. And here's a fun fringe tidbit. Some cats were dressed in ceremonial necklaces or painted lightly with mineral dyes for festivals. Not to embarrass them, though that happened, but to honor them as living symbols of the divine. You watch as a dancer kneels to offer you a strip of roast duck. You accept it. Daintily, of course. You are a lady, after all. Then someone holds up a palm-length sculpture, a cat made of polished bronze engraved with tiny hieroglyphs. A merchant explains to a foreign visitor that it's a blessing talisman. Keep it in your home and no snakes will come. Keep it near your children and they'll sleep peacefully. The visitor frowns. Why would a cat stop snakes? The merchant grins. She doesn't just purr, you know. She fights. Historians still argue whether Bastet evolved from a lioness war deity into a domestic goddess over time, or if the two aspects always coexisted, one paw in peace, one paw in fury. Some temple carvings show her as gentle and musical. Others show her roaring, armed, trampling evil spirits. That duality lives in every cat you meet here, including you. As night descends, torches are lit. The temple glows gold and amber. More offerings pour in small fragrant cakes shaped like mice garlands of herbs, jars of oil. You pass a cluster of priests debating which cat will be chosen to lie beside Bastet's statue tonight. One suggests you. Another laughs nervously. She chooses herself. True. You settle on the steps beneath the altar, grooming one paw then the other, as if the festivities were all thrown for your benefit. And maybe they were. From somewhere in the temple, you hear a soft chant, protector of the home daughter of Ra, keeper of the fire. The words drift like silk. You close your eyes. Up above, the moon rises over Bubastis, throwing soft light onto roofs and rivers and alleyways filled with sleeping cats. A world held together by myths and memories. And in the center of it all, you more than pet, less than deity, exactly what they need you to be. The morning light creeps over the Nile like a slow exhale, and you're already awake. Of course, you were never much for sleeping in. Something about the way those pigeons flap on rooftops makes your ear twitch. Your out early paws, soundless on packed dirt, winding through Bubastis as it rubs the sleep from its eyes. Today, the city feels quieter. Not in a sad way, more like that peaceful lull after a storm of celebration. The Feast of Bastet left the streets strewn with dropped flower petals and the faint scent of honeyed wine. A boat still floats lazily in the canal, its deck littered with half-melted candles and one very hungover-looking ibis. You jump over a puddle and into the courtyard of a local noblewoman, one who always leaves out scraps of dried fish and even weaves little straw toys for her cats. She's tending to her garden this morning, humming as she snips herbs. When she spots you, she bows slightly. Not a deep bow. Just enough to show respect. That's what's interesting. Even the wealthy, the ones with gold necklaces and perfumed servants, show you respect. And not just polite pat-pats on the head respect. No, no. We're talking ritual protocol kind of respect, because they believe you can influence things. Health, fertility, protection, even luck, especially luck. Inside her home statues of Bastet line the shelves, but beside them real breathing cats, some dozing, some curled on pillows, one balancing precariously on a pottery jar like he's auditioning for the feline circus. And not one of them is scolded or shooed away. The household works around them. Mainstream historians have plenty to say about this domestic dynamic. Unlike in other ancient cultures where animals were relegated to barns or pens, Egyptian cats lived inside the home, often sleeping in beds, being hand-fed, and even appearing in family portraits. These weren't just pets. They were household icons. The noblewoman picks up a carved onyx ring from her table. It's shaped like a cat curling around her finger. "This," she says to a guest, "keeps my children safe." She taps her temple. She watches in ways I cannot. You climb to a windowsill and watch the guest nod, intrigued. You can almost hear his thoughts. Why cats? Why this animal? Why not the loyal dog or the clever monkey? Let's answer that. A fringe theory, whispered more than taught, says it all began with fire. Long ago, Egyptians stored grain in mud brick silos delicious to mice. And where there are mice, there are cats. Wild cats at first. Skittish. Silent. But clever. Brave. And unlike jackals or hyenas, they didn't tear through villages or attack children. They handled the pests, then vanished into the reeds. Eventually, someone must have tossed a scrap of meat their way. A moment of generosity. Or maybe just curiosity. And the cat, rather than flee, stayed. From then on, humans and cats lived in a quiet alliance. No contract, no leash, just mutual benefit. And here's the kicker: Egyptians saw that this alliance was earned, not imposed. That alone made cats special. They weren't trained. They weren't coerced. They chose to be there. Historians still argue whether this domestic relationship was purely practical pest control or spiritual from the start. Some suggest the reverence grew over time as cats were folded into the stories of gods and guardians. Others believe their mysterious presence invited divinity in the first place. You hop down and trot past a window where a scribe is hunched over a scroll. He's drawing a cat. Not a caricature, not a cartoon, but a detailed, loving study. Tail curved, eyes sharp, a creature captured in full dignity. New design for a tomb painting, he mutters to himself. The deceased wanted to be shown with her beloved companion. She said the cat kept nightmares away. Not bad for a creature who mostly naps and occasionally chases string. You keep moving. Past the spice sellers, past the schoolboys reciting lines in sing-song voices, past a little old man who always pretends not to notice you before slipping you a sliver of salted cheese. Eventually, you arrive at a house with whitewashed walls and shutters made of woven reeds. It's quiet here. Too quiet. You slip inside through a gap under the doorway and immediately sense something's off. The air is still. The room smells of perfumed linen and dried flowers. A girl is kneeling beside a basket, crying softly. In the basket lies another cat, her cat. Still. Eyes closed. One paw curled as if she just blinked out mid-stretch. The girl's father sits beside her, rubbing her back. "We'll take her to the priests," he says gently. "They'll know what to do. She'll be honored properly." This isn't uncommon. Egyptians didn't just mourn their cats, they grieved them. When a beloved feline died, families often shaved their eyebrows as a sign of mourning. Some commissioned mummification complete with tiny sarcophagi and engraved epitaphs. You watch quietly as the family wraps the little body in linen and tucks it into a basket lined with soft reeds. They light a candle, say a prayer. Later, in the temple courtyard, the priests perform the rites. Incense wafts. The air hums with ancient words. The cat is laid gently into a miniature tomb alongside 2 lotus blossoms and a tiny bell. You feel the hush settle like dust. One of the priests turns to the girl. She goes to Bastet now, he says. She will sit beside the goddess and bat her tail at the spirits. The girl wipes her nose. Will Bastet know she was mine? The priest smiles. She always knows. The sun sets low and red over the Nile. The world dims. You walk back through the streets of Bubastis tail high. Tonight you'll sleep under a fig tree curled in a perfect spiral, dreaming of birds that never quite land. But somewhere in that dream the memory of that little cat lingers. And in some quiet way you carry her with you, like they all carry you etched in stone, sung in prayer, whispered into eternity. You stretch out beneath a palm tree as the shadows lengthen over the Nile tail, flicking lazily as you watch boats drift past. Some carry bundles of papyrus and grain. Others musicians plucking stringed instruments and clapping in sync. And on one of them, yes, 2 cats, one black and one cream-colored, perched like figureheads at the bow faces, tilted into the breeze as if they own the river. Which, let's be honest, they kinda do. You blink slowly, because tonight we're leaving the city again. This time into the countryside where fields of barley roll like golden waves, and the air smells like sun-warmed earth and dung. Yeah, you win some, you lose some. You follow a dirt path toward a cluster of small homes made of sun-dried brick. Laundry flutters overhead. Chickens cluck. A cow eyes you with something between awe and annoyance. You're visiting a farmer's house, and here cats are more than just companions. They're protectors. This house is surrounded by grain stores and chicken coops. Delicious to rodents, tempting to snakes. But there's no panic, no shouting. Why? Because you're on duty. The farmer's family greets you like a guest of honor. The youngest child giggles and reaches out to scratch behind your ear. You tolerate it for exactly 4 seconds, generous really, before wriggling free and stalking off toward the grain baskets. And what do you find, a mouse? He freezes. You freeze. And then one graceful pounce later, he is no longer a problem. You return to the porch like a hero. The family beams. The grandmother whispers something that sounds suspiciously like a blessing. You do not deny it. Mainstream records confirm rural Egyptians relied heavily on cats to protect their food supplies. Farmers often gave them names, offered bits of cooked meat, and even made small household altars to Bastet in their honor. One papyrus poem even describes a cat standing guard like a loyal soldier against the creeping mouths of the field. And here's a quirky little tidbit. Some farmers believed that cats had a supernatural 6th sense, that they could feel approaching sandstorms, detect illnesses, or even spot wandering spirits. So, when your fur bristles for no reason and you bolt under the table, they don't just think you're being dramatic, they think you're warning them. You leap onto the windowsill and peer into the kitchen. A pot of lentils simmers on the hearth. You detect the faintest whiff of coriander and goat milk. Then, something else movement in the thatch above. You stare. Everyone notices. And suddenly, from the rafters, a snake drops. Now, don't panic. You certainly don't. You spring into action before the adults even get to their feet. There's a hiss, a scramble, and a blur of fur and scale. The snake, small but venomous, is swiftly dispatched. And when you strut back toward the doorway, ears back tail flicking. Oh yes, you're a legend now. They offer you an egg. You decline. You do, however, accept the tiny silver bell one of them gently ties to a reed cord around your neck. It jingles softly as you walk a sound like distant temple chimes. You spend the night on the roof, curled into the warm thatch. Below you, the family tells stories by firelight. One of them about you. Not you specifically, but someone like you. A story of a cat who guarded a tomb from grave robbers, who scratched out a demon's eyes, who licked the tears from a lost boy's face and led him home through the desert. Are these just stories? Historians still argue whether Egyptian cats were mythologized after centuries of helpful behavior, or if they were always seen as mystical from the start. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Real deeds grew into tall tales, and tall tales rooted themselves into belief. In the middle of the night, you wake to find an owl staring at you from a nearby tree. You return its gaze unmoved. It hoots, once then flies off. No challenge there. You leap down from the roof and slip through the shadows. A neighbor's yard, a row of date palms. Another house where a woman is in labor. The midwife is fanning her with a palm frond. The room smells of jasmine, sweat, and boiled herbs. You slip under the bed. No one minds. The mother's hand finds your back and stays there trembling. She breathes. You purr. A soft, steady rhythm that hums beneath the tension. Her breathing slows. The midwife nods. There are stories about this too. In villages across Egypt, it was said that cats brought calm in childbirth, that their purring soothed pain, that their presence kept dark spirits away. Some midwives even refused to begin their work until a cat had entered the room. You stay until dawn. The baby is born. A girl. Strong lungs. Bright eyes. The mother thanks you with a smile, and the midwife says she'll have Bastet's luck now. She was born under a cat's blessing. You saunter out just as the sun peeks over the horizon, warming the dust and rooftops. The farmers begin their day again, and the Nile glitters like a lazy serpent winding through the land. And somewhere in that shimmer, a story begins about a mysterious stripe-tailed guardian who appears when you need her. Most strikes like lightning and vanishes without a trace. Just a cat never. You're part of the fabric now. Part of the field, the fire, the family. You pad along the temple causeway at mid-morning, pause, silent on the warm flagstones. A breeze carries incense from somewhere ahead. Frankincense and myrrh, mingled with lotus and something deeper, stranger, older. The kind of scent that settles behind your eyes and makes your whiskers twitch. This is not the house of a noble or a farmer. This is something else. The Temple of Bastet. Towering columns rise above you, carved with images of your kind. Graceful bodies, coiled tails, eyes wide and knowing. You glance up and, yep, there you are again. And again. Honestly, they really caught your best angles. You saunter past the guards who don't so much as blink. Here, you're not a nuisance. You're more like clergy. Inside, it's quiet, but not empty. Worshippers move slowly through the space, offering bowls of milk, woven garlands, even soft linen cloths folded with precision. A priestess walks barefoot, her robes whispering. She carries a small painted cat statue draped in gold chains. You hop onto a ledge and watch her place it on the altar with deep reverence. You've always known you're important. But here, the air practically vibrates with that truth. Mainstream historians agree that temples to Bastet weren't just religious hubs, they were also sanctuaries for actual living cats. Some temples reportedly housed hundreds of felines cared for by devoted priestesses and temple workers. The cats were fed bathed and adorned with jewelry. Some even wore tiny ear studs. Yes, pierced. Fashion. And here's a fun little fringe fact. In Bubastis, it's said that certain cats born under specific lunar alignments were believed to be chosen of Bastet vessels for the goddess herself. They were pampered, consulted for omens, and if they sat near a sick person, people assumed healing was on the way. If they sneezed, well, that was seen as divine punctuation. You stroll deeper into the temple courtyard, where sunlight spills in a perfect square. Other cats lounge in the warmth, long-haired, short-haired, striped, and solid. One is balancing on the edge of a water basin like she's performing for an audience. Another is lazily batting at a priest's sandal tassel, while the man reads aloud from a scroll. You nod a greeting. They blink back in that half-bored, half-holy way that only temple cats can. Just beyond the courtyard is a special chamber rarely opened. But today, a funeral procession approaches. You recognize the signs. Linen-wrapped figures, musicians with curved harps, wailing women with ink-dark tears drawn on their cheeks. And there, in a smaller basket covered with embroidered silk, a cat. She was old. You can tell by the worn pads on her paws the dullness of her coat. But she's been honored. Her eyes are covered with gold leaf. Her tiny body is curled like she's merely napping. A priestess lifts her gently and carries her into the inner sanctum. Here, a mummification ritual begins. You watch, still and solemn. The process is meticulous anointing with sacred oils, wrapping with care, placing small amulets between the layers of linen. A tiny bronze charm shaped like a fish. Another shaped like a tiny paw. Each layer is sealed with a whisper. May Bastet guide you. May the night not frighten you. May you find warm places in the afterlife. Historians still argue whether all mummified cats were pets, or if some were bred specifically for ritual purposes. Some records suggest a booming cat mummy economy during later dynasties where animals were bred sacrificed and preserved for sale to pilgrims wanting a sacred offering. Ethical. Not exactly, but complex definitely. Here, though, it's not commerce, it's family. The priestess places the finished mummy into a miniature sarcophagus carved from alabaster. On the lid, a delicate engraving of her curled body surrounded by stars. You follow as the small procession leads her into the cat necropolis, a sprawling underground tomb filled with thousands of similar burials. Some in jars, others in carved boxes. One in a miniature replica of a temple, complete with columns and tiny incense burners. It's humbling, really. Humans barely build this much for their own dead. As you walk among the niches and carved ledges, your paw brushes against a stone tile. You glance down. There's writing there. A name. And beside it, a symbol, a feather. Maybe it meant the cat was swift, or light-hearted, or simply beloved. That's the thing. Each of these burials tells a story, but most of those stories are lost. All that remains is the reverence, the sheer magnitude of effort to remember, to honor, to protect. You return to the temple surface just as the sky shifts to a deeper blue. Worshippers light oil lamps. Bells ring softly. The cats begin to stir. One curls around a statue and closes her eyes. Another climbs into a high alcove and surveys the room like a watchful queen. You hop onto a ledge near the main altar and stretch luxuriously. The priestess sees you and smiles. She doesn't speak, doesn't need to. She simply places a small dish of milk at your feet and bows her head slightly. It's a quiet acknowledgement, a ritual within a ritual. You settle down and begin to purr a deep, steady rhythm that seems to echo off the walls. Around you, candles flicker. Incense curls. And through the silence, you can almost hear the ancient prayers drifting upward. Protector in shadow. Hunter in light. Watcher of dreams. Keeper of peace. The temple sleeps with one eye open. And so do you. The desert wind is warm tonight, warmer than usual. It combs through your fur like the fingers of a ghost, ruffling whiskers and trailing sand along your back. You're not in the city or village now. You're in a caravan. A line of camels lumbers ahead, tall and stubborn their bells, tinkling with every plodding step. The traders murmur in different dialects, their voices blending with the hiss of wind and creak of leather. You, of course, ride in style, perched in a woven basket lined with linen shaded by a flap of dyed goat hide. A small bowl of figs rests nearby untouched. You're not a fruit person, but it's the thought that counts. You're part of something larger now. Trade. People don't always think about it, but ancient Egypt didn't stay locked within its own borders. No, it reached out along the Mediterranean down into Nubia across the Red Sea. And sometimes the cats went too. Mainstream history confirms it. Cats became prized exports. Merchants and emissaries from distant lands marveled at the grace and elegance of Egyptian felines. Some were gifted to royalty. Others were traded for ivory spices or rare gems. A cat on board your ship. Suddenly, you weren't just transporting grain, you were sailing with a divine being. You hop down from your basket and trot to the edge of the caravan, tail held high. The horizon glows faintly ahead, the lights of a foreign port city. You can already smell the salt in the air, the fish drying on open racks, the unfamiliar notes of spiced meat and unfamiliar flowers. But not everyone welcomes you. At the dock, a local priest eyes you warily. He crosses himself in a way you don't recognize and mutters something under his breath. To him, you're not cute. You're trouble, a foreign deity in fur. You flick your tail and continue strolling. Because here's the thing, Egyptian cats weren't just beloved at home, they caused international drama. One quirky episode tells of a Persian noble who received a gift cat from Egypt and treated it so lavishly that courtiers became jealous. Another legend, probably apocryphal but still delicious, claims that invading armies once held cats hostage during a siege, knowing the Egyptians wouldn't dare attack while their sacred animals were in danger. Historians still argue whether cats were officially banned from export at one point, or whether that was a rumor spread to inflate their value. But there are papyri that seem to show customs agents actually inspecting cargo to ensure no unauthorized cats were leaving the country. Which is hilarious. You imagine a stern inspector unrolling a scroll and squinting into a basket. "Excuse me, sir, is this feline registered with the state?" You blink slowly, as if any cat answers to paperwork. You leap onto the ship's rail as it begins to sway. The deckhands scramble to hoist the sails. One of them spots you and grins. "A stowaway, eh?" he says, reaching out to scratch under your chin. You allow it for 3 seconds. Night falls quickly at sea. Stars emerge like spilled glitter across the velvet sky. You find a spot behind a coiled rope and watch the moon rise over the waves. The rhythm of the ship matches your breathing. It's said that sailors, superstitious as ever, believed cats brought luck. Not just for keeping rats off the ship, though that was certainly helpful, but for guiding them safely through storms. If the ship's cat meowed in warning, you listened. If she refused to leave her corner before setting sail, cancel the trip. You're not tempting fate. You curl up and sleep lightly. The scent of brine fills your nose. The creak of timber becomes a lullaby. In the morning, you wake to shouting. A dolphin arcs alongside the boat. The crew cheers. One of them calls it a sign. Another says it means Poseidon is watching. You stretch and yawn. Personally, you think it just wants fish. The ship reaches a coastal city, Cyprus, perhaps, or somewhere farther west. You disembark tail high as traders negotiate loudly in a market ringed with columns. A man in fine robes spots you and stops mid-sentence. He crouches, whispers to his companion, and gestures. You're being evaluated. Soon, you're carried with excessive ceremony honestly into a villa scented with citrus and oil lamps. There are peacocks in the garden, a mosaic of dolphins under your paws, and the woman of the house greets you like a visiting monarch. She names you something foreign, Callista, perhaps, or Nubis. You ignore it. She offers you cream in a painted bowl. You sip. Okay, maybe this place has potential. Here, the myths shift. You're no longer a servant of Bastet. You become something more flexible, a lucky omen, a mysterious traveler, a creature between worlds. They don't quite understand you. But that doesn't stop the stories. One fringe belief from this era, cats were thought to dream of the gods, that while they slept they visited divine realms and returned with subtle messages, body language that needed decoding. A twitch of the tail could mean fortune, a sudden jump danger. You lean into it, of course. Every yawn becomes prophecy. Some nights you gaze up at a sky you don't recognize and you wonder what the Nile looks like right now. Whether the other cats at the Temple of Bastet are stretched out in sunbeams or climbing walls or watching priests light candles. Do they miss you? Are you missed? You climb to the villa rooftop and settle in the curved crook of a statue's arm. Below, laughter and music. Somewhere near the gate, a new guest arrives bearing spices silk, and in a small basket, a striped kitten. You blink. Even far from home your kind spreads. Whisker by whisker. Tail by tail. From palace to port temple to trade route. Carried not just as pets, but as protectors. As symbols. As mysteries wrapped in purrs. The breeze carries a new scent, jasmine and foreign spices, and you close your eyes, letting it all drift through you. The sea, the stars, the stories. You're not just a cat. You're a traveler of legends. You awaken to the hush of linen curtains fluttering in the morning breeze, sunlight slipping through the shutters like liquid gold. Somewhere nearby, a woman hums softly the tune rising and falling like waves on the Nile. The villa's stone floor is cool beneath your paws as you stretch back arched high claws extending with a satisfying flex. You're back in Egypt. But this isn't the temple or a bustling port. This is the house of a noblewoman, and you, darling furball, are the pampered jewel of her estate. She calls you Meret. It means beloved, which feels both accurate and deserved. She's a scribe's daughter turned poet, and your presence is her daily inspiration. Every scroll she writes begins with a little sketch of you curled up beside a papyrus roll, or stalking a beetle under a palm frond. You're her muse, her shadow, her living talisman. Domestic life for Egyptian cats, you realize, isn't just about catching mice or keeping cobras at bay, though you've definitely scared off a few wriggling things near the granary. It's about presence, about becoming woven into the rhythm of home. Mainstream historians agree cats weren't only valued for their pest control skills, though that helped them earn their keep. They were beloved members of the household, Scenes from tomb paintings and reliefs show cats reclining under tables being fed from human hands, even wearing little collars and decorative pendants. Cats were family. And, like all family members, they appeared in family portraits, even in the afterlife ones. One afternoon, your noblewoman sits beside a craftsman as he sculpts her funerary statue. She gently places you in her lap and points. "Include her," she says. "She walks with me into the West." It's not just sentimentality. Egyptians believed in the continuity of life after death. So, if you mattered to someone in this world, you followed them into the next on scroll in stone, or as a lovingly wrapped feline mummy. You lounge in the courtyard as a servant sweeps the tiles with a palm frond broom. Geese honk at the edge of the fish pond. A monkey clatters on the far wall. But you remain unbothered. Regal. One of the children in the house giggles and dangles a string for you to chase. You oblige for 3 pounces. After all, it's important to maintain the illusion of effort. Later that week, the family prepares for a feast. Baskets of figs, dates, and honey cakes arrive. Fresh fish is gutted and grilled in open-air ovens. And you, of course, are offered the choicest scraps before the guests even arrive. You hop onto a carved bench and watch the festivities unfold. Nobles in linen tunics fan themselves with ostrich feathers. Musicians play reed flutes. A dancer balances a pot on her head while spinning. Your noblewoman sits beneath a canopy, and when she strokes your head you feel it not just affection, but reverence. As if your presence guarantees the harmony of the evening. Now, here's a fun fringe fact. In some wealthier homes, it's believed that the cats had their own servants, humans who were tasked specifically with caring for them. Feeding, grooming, entertaining. If true, it means you weren't just part of the household hierarchy. You outranked some of the staff. Historians still argue whether these roles were formalized or simply a matter of deep affection. But the idea of a person being assigned to care for a cat exclusively, it sounds absurd, and also completely plausible. The sun dips behind the courtyard wall, casting everything in golden haze. You leap onto the windowsill and gaze out across the fields. The family estate stretches far rows of barley, tall papyrus, and oxen, lumbering in slow circular turns. In the servants' quarters, someone's telling a story. You can just catch the words through the open window. She came from the stars, that one. A gift of Bastet. When she purrs, the scorpions retreat. They're talking about you. You stretch and flick your tail with studied modesty. You'd deny it, if it weren't mostly true. And there in the evening hush you hear a different kind of sound, faint, rhythmic, deliberate. Carving. You sneak down to the artisan's studio and peek inside. The noblewoman is commissioning a wall panel for her tomb. The craftsman carves her image in profile, tall, elegant, offering a lotus to the gods. And at her feet, a cat. You. Poised ears alert a tail curled like a question mark. You walk over to the stone and press your paw gently against it. The artisan chuckles. "Don't worry," he murmurs. "We'll get your eyes right. This is more than decoration. This is immortality." Because in Egypt, if you're pictured in a tomb, you don't just get remembered, you get recalled. Spiritually. Magically. Your image is your passport into the field of reeds, the idyllic afterlife. No scratching posts, sadly, but definitely eternal sunbeams, and the occasional bird to chase. And if you're lucky enough to be mummified with your human, well, then you're never alone. That night, curled on silken cushions, you dream, not of mice or string or sunspots, but of walking through tall reeds beside your human. Her laughter floats on the breeze. You bat at dragonflies. The Nile sparkles ahead. She kneels and strokes your fur. We walk together, she says, and you purr. Not just because it's comforting, but because it's true. The air is heavy tonight, like it's holding its breath. You lie on a low wall outside the embalmer's workshop, tail draped over the edge, ears twitching at every distant drumbeat. Funerary rituals are underway again. Some distant nobles transition to the west. The scent of myrrh and cedar oil drifts on the wind, mixing with the chalky aroma of drying natron. You know this place well by now. See, in ancient Egypt, the line between life and death wasn't a divide, it was a carefully tended bridge. And you little marvel sometimes helped people cross it. You hop down and slink through a half-open door, brushing past clay jars labeled in ink. The workshop is clean, clinical. A linen-wrapped figure lies motionless on a slab. But you're not here for them. You're here for what happens next. Tonight, they're preparing a cat. Yes, one of your own. Wrapped delicately in strips of linen, anointed with oils laid carefully in a box shaped like a crouching feline. A young boy watches eyes wide. Will she still purr in the afterlife? He asks the embalmer. The man smiles gently. Of course, he says. She'll keep Bastet company. It's a chilling and fascinating sight, one that historians still debate fiercely. Were all mummified cats beloved pets? Or were some bred specifically for sacrifice? There's evidence pointing in both directions. Mainstream sources confirm that cat mummies were incredibly common. Thousands upon thousands have been unearthed from temple vaults and underground catacombs. Some are carefully preserved with obvious reverence. Others, less so. Stuffed, hastily broken bones, fake fillings. Fringe theory time, some scholars believe the demand for votive cat mummies grew so intense it birthed an entire cottage industry of cat farming. Tiny kittens raised and mummified before maturity were sold to temple-goers wanting to earn favor with Bastet. You pause near one such mummy already laid in a painted wooden coffin. The craftsmanship is beautiful gold inlays around the eyes, a painted necklace ears perked in eternal alertness, a perfect little guardian. And there's the heartache of it isn't there. These weren't just pets, they were offerings, tokens of protection, love, guilt, or maybe just social status. It's hard to know for sure. But you do know this for a creature so small, cats played a very big role in how people faced death. Take, for example, the practice of burying a cat alongside a human. It wasn't just sentimental, it was strategic. A guardian for the journey ahead. Someone to see what the human could not, to slink through shadowy passageways and hiss at lurking chaos spirits. Imagine the cat sitting calmly in the boat of millions of years' tale, flicking while Ra battles Apophis, a divine sidekick. But here's a quirky tidbit that almost never gets mentioned in textbooks in some versions of the myth. It's not just Ra doing the battling at night, it's Ra in the form of a giant cat slaying a massive serpent with one paw while holding a knife in the other. Picture that. The sun, God himself, choosing feline form to take down cosmic evil. And you thought your own mood swings were dramatic. You pad through the temple corridor, past frescoes showing that exact scene giant cat serpent moonlit chaos, and pause under a niche filled with dozens of cat statues. Bronze gold faience. Some are tiny enough to fit in a child's palm. Others nearly your height. A priestess approaches and lights incense at the base of the shrine. She whispers a prayer. Not to a god, but to a cat spirit. Perhaps one like you. You hop onto a nearby pedestal and watch as she places an amulet beside one of the statues, a gleaming eye-shaped charm. The Eye of Ra. Another feline symbol. Another layer of meaning. Cats weren't just protectors in the afterlife. They were bridges between things gods and mortals day and night, seen and unseen. The priests knew this. The people knew this. Even the children knew this. You pause to remember one such child. A boy with dusty feet and a laugh that could shake the birds from the trees. He used to sneak you little bits of roasted fish during festival days. One day he showed you a necklace he'd made from string and blue beads. "It's for when I die," he said proudly. "So I can be brave." He never got to wear it. You found the necklace later tucked inside a cat statue near his family tomb. You never asked, but you know. It was meant for you. In modern times, people balk at the idea of animal mummies. It sounds harsh or strange. But to the ancient Egyptians it was the greatest honor. To be preserved, remembered, reunited. Some cats were buried in their own stone coffins inscribed with names. Others were nestled inside walls or stacked in deep underground vaults in sprawling catacombs of cats. Literally. At Bubastis, archaeologists uncovered layers upon layers of feline remains stacked like sleepy cordwood beneath the temple. Some wrapped in silk, others decorated with beads. Each one a whisper of someone's prayer, someone's love. Tonight, as the embalmer finishes his task, he lifts the tiny cat mummy gently and places her into her sarcophagus. A small painted scene shows her standing before Bastet, tail lifted golden rays above her. The boy lights a candle and watches the flame flicker. You sit beside him, pressing your side gently against his. Not all cats are sacrificed. Some become comfort, some are memory, some are hope. Later, as you walk under the stars, pause, silent against the cool stone, you feel the hush of eternity settle around you. The night air is still. The Nile reflects the sky like a dark mirror. You pause to look up. Thousands of tiny lights blink down at you, some still nameless, others etched into stone by long-dead astronomers. Among them, you imagine a new constellation. A cat, curled around the moontail, flicking gently toward the east. Watching. Always watching. You stretch luxuriously beneath a fig tree where the warm shade offers a perfect escape from the afternoon heat. Your paws flex lazily in the dust, and you eye a butterfly as it dances just out of reach. No pouncing today. Too hot. Too peaceful. Besides, a servant has just brought you a dish of goat milk, and you're not about to disrupt that royal treatment. This estate belongs to a high priest, wealthy, stern, always muttering invocations under his breath. But with you, he softens. He even smiles sometimes, which startles his attendants. You've heard him whisper things to you that he'd never say aloud to a human. You keep the evil spirits at bay, don't you? He says one evening, scratching behind your ears. They fear your gaze more than mine. It's not a compliment, it's a fact. You're not just a pet here. You're a talisman, a presence. A silent watcher in a world where magic hums just beneath the surface of everyday life. You see, in ancient Egypt, cats weren't just animals, they were magical thresholds, guardians, embodiments of protective energy, especially against the unclean things like disease, bad dreams, curses, rodents, and, yes, even demons. The priest knows this and he treats you accordingly. You wander into his private sanctuary. Papyrus scrolls line the walls, each carefully inked with hieroglyphs and protective spells. He's preparing a ritual for a patient, a noblewoman sick with something mysterious. Fever, trembling, maybe even possession. While the priest chants, you hop onto the altar, and sit directly beside the bowl of incense. No one moves to stop you. They know better. Your eyes gleam in the torchlight. Smoke curls around you. To them, you are not just a creature, you are the living breath of Bastet. You are the spell made fur. Mainstream historians confirm that cats were often present in healing rituals. Some were believed to carry divine energy, others to physically absorb illness or ward off malevolent spirits. The sick might sleep near a cat for protection, or place a feline figurine by the bed to watch through the night. Quirky tidbit. Some households placed bowls of milk not for their cats, but as spiritual offerings, hoping the cat would accept it and keep the family safe from nightmares or misfortune. Milk for blessings, or bribery, depending on your mood. Tonight, as the noblewoman breathes shallowly on a bed of reeds, the priest whispers a spell involving the tail of the watcher and eyes that do not sleep. That's you again, by the way. You curl against the sick woman's arm. She opens one eye and smiles. She'll be okay. Not because of the priest, because of you. Historians still argue whether Egyptians truly believed cats contained magic or simply channeled it. Was the feline a vessel for divine power or just a very lucky mascot? Some texts refer to the sacred fur, others to eyes that pierce the unseen. But nothing is entirely consistent. That's the nature of belief. It shapeshifts like you in a shadowed alley. The next morning, the noblewoman is on her feet again. She kneels before the altar and leaves an offering of myrrh and bread. And to you, a little silver bell on a linen cord. So you'll always find your way back, she says. You accept it graciously. After a small dramatic pause. Down the road in a smaller village, another story unfolds. A farmer's wife stands at the door, fending off a band of rats. Her grain stores are nearly ruined. She leaves food out in the alley each night, hoping one of you will come. You do, but not just you. A trio of lean, golden-eyed cats emerges from the darkness. No one summoned them, but no one questions their arrival. That night, the rats vanish. The villagers whisper of Bastet's patrol. They leave offerings in clay bowls, bits of dried fish, warm bread, tiny glass beads. Not all magic comes from temples and scrolls. Some of it walks quietly through alleys, tail-flicking eyes shining. You pause near a pottery stand where a craftsman is shaping small amulets. Cats with exaggerated ears and long, elegant bodies. He dips one in black glaze and says, for protection. He dips another in gold and says, for luck. He gives the third one, unglazed, simple, imperfect, to a child whose kitten just died. For remembrance, he murmurs, even in clay, you mean something. And you're not the only one who knows it. At the marketplace, a group of merchants haggle over linen. One of them carries a pouch of charm scarabs, ankhs, and cats. Always cats. They're best sellers. Everyone wants one. Not just because of Bastet, but because cats represent something deeper. Watchfulness, grace, precision. A balance between calm and chaos. A middle path. And isn't that what magic really is? The art of balance. The priest from earlier would say yes. The farmer's wife would say yes. The child, clutching the little ceramic cat, would say yes. Even the rats, now scattered into the fields, might nod if they dared. That evening, as the sun slips below the horizon, you walk along the riverbank. The sky is bruised pink and orange. A heron cries somewhere upstream. You pause. There's a ripple in the reeds. Another cat. Not a rival. A sister. You stare at each other for a long silent moment. Then she nods. You nod back. and vanish into the shadows in opposite directions like spells sent out into the night. You arrive back at the estate just in time for the priest's evening prayer. He sees you at the doorway and sighs with relief. He wasn't sure you'd come back. He doesn't know where you go during the day. He doesn't ask. But each night he leaves a space beside him on the prayer mat, just in case. You wake to the sound of clinking jewelry and hushed laughter. Golden light filters through the carved stone windows, glinting off polished alabaster. This is not the priest's sanctuary, not the temple shadows. No, today you're lounging in the sun-drenched courtyard of an aristocratic home. Marble floors, lotus ponds, and servants who step carefully around you like you're made of crystal. You roll onto your side and stretch so theatrically that a young servant girl giggles. She leans over to stroke your chin. "Spoiled little guardian," she says with mock reproach. And she's right. Here cats are more than pets. They're fashion accessories, conversation starters, and cultural icons. You're as integral to elite Egyptian life as perfume linen and elaborate eyeliner. This is the golden age of the cat cult, where having a feline companion isn't just common. It's expected. In fact, it's downright fashionable. Mainstream historians agree that during certain periods, especially around the New Kingdom, wealthy households treated their cats with absurd levels of indulgence. Painted murals show well-fed felines lounging under dining tables, munching on scraps of roasted duck, or being hand-fed by servants. Some even wore golden earrings, beaded collars, and intricate name tags. You twitch your ears toward the sound of music. The lady of the house is hosting a gathering, soft flutes, wine, flowing servants, pouring sweet date syrup into tiny cups. Her cat sits perched beside her, wrapped in a linen shawl like royalty. Not to be outdone, a guest arrives with two cats in tow. Twins. One black, one white. Both wear tiny lapis lazuli necklaces. They stare you down. You yawn. This house is like a feline red carpet event. Quirky detail, there are documented tomb scenes where cats are shown not just lying around, but participating. One scene shows a cat under a woman's chair pawing at her perfumed wig tassel. Another shows a cat with kohl-rimmed eyes mimicking its mistress's beauty look. Historians suspect this was more than artistic flair. It reflected the real intertwining of cats with human identity and vanity. Your host, meanwhile, takes her grooming seriously. She bathes in scented oils, applies malachite eyeshadow, and burns incense cones in her hair. You know her morning ritual by heart. But what she doesn't know is how closely you study her too. Every blink, every motion. Cats watch everything. That's why Egyptians believed you could protect not just homes, but reputations. Having a sleek, alert cat beside you signaled cleanliness, order, refinement. It was like saying, yes, I live well, and my soul is probably spotless too. Historians still argue whether these depictions of lavishly adorned cats mean actual feline fashion was a thing, or whether it was symbolic. Maybe the beaded collars were metaphors. Maybe not. But archaeologists have found real cat-sized jewelry buried in elite tombs, and sometimes even matching sets for pet and owner. You're starting to feel a little underdressed. You wander to the mirror pool. A water clock ticks beside it. Your reflection wavers as koi fish ripple the surface. You see yourself, sleek fur, narrowed eyes, a tiny golden charm dangling from your collar. Not bad. You dip a paw into the pool and promptly pretend it was on purpose. One of the servants chuckles softly. You shoot him a withering glare, and he retreats immediately. That's more like it. Later, as the feast winds down, the ladies of the house retire to their chambers. You follow the youngest girl to her room, where dolls and game pieces lie scattered across a mat. She talks to you like a sibling. "My tutor says cats are quiet because they keep secrets," she whispers, feeding you a slice of honeyed fig. "Do you know mine?" You blink. She smiles and takes it as a yes. You spend the night curled beside her on a linen blanket stitched with gold thread. Outside, the wind rustles the papyrus. Somewhere far off, a scribe is composing a letter home, mentioning his wife and the neighborhood cat who visits their doorstep each night like clockwork. Even scribes need guardians. In the morning, the family's barber visits. He's seen whispering to the cats before touching their owners. For steady hands, he says, patting your head before sharpening his razor. Superstition, maybe. But it works. You wander into the bathhouse. The heat is thick and sweet with the scent of palm wine and sandalwood. The housekeeper offers you a seat on a folded towel. No one questions why the cat is here. You're always supposed to be here. It's strange how, even with all this pampering, there's no sense of irony. The Egyptians never mock your place. They take your presence as seriously as they take their gods, their lineage, their makeup. There's even a word for it, Mott. Order, balance, rightness, and cats. You're walking Mott. Quiet, poised, unknowable. A high compliment in this culture. And also a high responsibility. You walk through the home as the sun reaches its peak, pausing in shafts of light like a furry sundial. You settle in your favorite spot near the statue of Bastet in the courtyard. A visitor approaches and bows slightly, not to the statue, but to you. You flick your tail but allow it. He leaves a lotus blossom on the ground. For luck. So, here's what you've become, protector, ornament, muse, dreamkeeper. Not bad for something that still occasionally eats bugs for fun. And yet despite all this reverence, you're still fundamentally you. Curious, sleek, independent. You might curl on the lady's lap one moment and the next knock a jug of scented oil onto her favorite sandals. Balance. Always balance. The afternoon fades into a cool, peach-tinted evening. Musicians begin to play again, and a servant offers you a fresh bowl of milk. You sniff it. Acceptable. You stretch again, like you've just remembered you're made of silk, and shadows, and pad through the colonnade tail high. You aren't just loved here. You're necessary. You're part of the fabric of the home, woven into daily life with the same elegance as the embroidery on their tunics or the painted lotus on their cups. One guest whispers, "I think cats can see our dreams." Another replies, "They probably edit them." You think if only they knew. You slink out just before dawn when the air still smells like wet clay, and the Nile murmurs like a half-awake god. The city is hushed. You move like a shadow, soft, unbothered, half-dreaming yourself. Your paws leave no sound on the stone. It's time to visit somewhere different. Beyond the temples and aristocratic courtyards lies a quieter place, a dusty stretch of land dotted with carved markers, flickering torches, and silence thick as linen. You've reached the necropolis, the city of the dead. It might not sound like a vacation spot, but you love it here. It's full of secrets. You pause at a low wall and leap up your silhouette framed by the pinkish dawn. Ahead, rows of tombs glow faintly, some still adorned with fresh garlands. A few human caretakers are already at work, sweeping, replacing offerings, talking in low voices that carry like wind across the sand. This is where your kin are honored with a reverence that startles even you. See, Egyptians didn't just adore cats in life, they deified them in death. Literally. Cats were mummified, placed in individual sarcophagi, and interred with as much ceremony as wealthy nobles. Thousands, no tens of thousands of cat mummies have been discovered across Egypt. Some wrapped in dyed linen, some with golden masks, some with painted eyes so lifelike they look like they might blink any second. You pad past one tomb, adorned with a relief showing Bastet, feline-headed and regal, flanked by her priestesses. Below, tiny carved cats march in procession. Mainstream historians note that the ancient city of Bubastis became a center of this cat reverence. Cat cemeteries there were massive, organized, and purpose-built. Pilgrims traveled from across the Nile Valley to bury their feline companions or by votive mummies, basically pre-blessed cats, sometimes real mummies, sometimes symbolic ones. Quirky detail, some families couldn't afford a full cat mummy, so they purchased tiny cat bundles, wrapped linen around bones, sometimes just a toe or tail. The sacred didn't have to be complete to be powerful. You hop down and wander toward one open-air tomb. A priest is performing rites for a noblewoman. You recognize the soft intonation, a spell to guide her ka, or spirit, into the afterlife, and at the foot of her sarcophagus her cat, already mummified, already waiting. The priest doesn't mention the cat in the chant. He doesn't have to. The silence acknowledges it. Cats were believed to accompany souls into the next world part part guard. Their quiet nature, their night vision, their seeming ability to exist between life and death, all made them perfect companions for eternity. Historians still argue whether these practices were rooted in sincere belief or religious performance. Were these funerary felines spiritual insurance policies or social expectations? Was burying your cat an act of love, or just a sign that you'd made it in society? The records are inconsistent, but the devotion feels real. You wander further into the cemetery. One section is devoted entirely to cats' small tombs carved into cliffs stacked like honeycombs. Each contains bones, amulets, or a painted likeness, sometimes both. You pause before one particular niche. It's newer. A small girl's handwriting, clumsy, hopeful, is scratched into the clay plaque. For Senu, my brave hunter. You curl against the stone. It's warm, despite the morning chill. Sometimes even cats mourn. You remember Senu. He used to chase lizards along the palace wall. Show off. Always flicking his tail too high. But sweet. He once shared a pigeon with you. You'll stay here a moment in his memory. From behind you comes the soft crunch of sand. A young woman approaches with a basket. She lays out dried herbs, incense pellets, and a tiny carved figurine. She bows not to the tombs, but to you. For Bastet's envoy, she says. You don't correct her. You sit regal and still as she begins her prayer. Her voice trembles. Someone she loves is sick. She hopes that honoring the feline spirits might bring strength. A silent bargain, ancient as the river. And here's the curious thing, this place, this field of cat tombs and moon-carved stone, never feels sad. It feels full. Reverent, the kind of silence that listens back. You leap up to a ledge overlooking the valley. The sun is fully risen now, brushing the landscape in gold. In the distance, a caravan moves along the road, pilgrims heading toward Bubastis, carrying baskets of flowers, wrapped cats, and coins for the priestesses. A child walks at the front holding a kitten. Even now, the cult of Bastet thrives. You blink slowly the way cats do when they trust, the way humans often mimic when they want your approval. Maybe that's why you're here, not just to look pretty or scare rats, but to remind humans how to feel, how to grieve without fear, how to honor the quiet. You leap down paws soft on the dust, back toward the living city. But you glance back once, just once, at the little shrine for Senu. You won't forget. A gust of wind trails you like a scarf as you disappear behind the nearest tomb. You take a winding shortcut past an old sycamore and a dry well, and emerge just outside the walls of a humble house. A woman is sweeping her doorstep. She sees you and smiles. "About time," she says. You blink. You're exactly where you need to be. You stretch like a ribbon pulled taut your back, arching dramatically as you slink into the familiar little courtyard of this humble home. The woman laughs again, brushing dust from her apron. "Show off," she mutters, but she's already pouring a bowl of milk with practiced hands. It's quieter here than in the estates or temples. No gold, no flutes, no statues. Just a clay oven, a crooked date palm, and the warm scent of barley bread baking on a stone slab. A child peeks out from behind a woven curtain and gasps when they see you. "He's back," the boy calls. You recognize him, too. This is a household you visit often, maybe more than any other. They don't own you, of course. No one does. But they welcome you like kin, and when their baby was sick, they left a silver amulet beside your sleeping body, just in case your presence could chase away whatever shadows had crept inside. You circle the small home like a lazy orbit, inspecting every shadowed corner and sunlit nook. You pass a basket of laundry, a patch of herbs in the windowsill, and the family's only mirror-polished bronze slightly tarnished. In it, you catch a glimpse of yourself, still magnificent, slightly dusty. The child offers you a scrap of fish. You pretend to be indifferent, but devour it anyway. This, historians say, was the daily magic of ancient Egyptian life cats. Didn't just exist in temples and tombs. They were part of the very pulse of the people. Farmers, fishermen, merchants, scribes, every household from the opulent to the modest often had at least one cat slinking through it. And not as pets in the modern sense, more like partners. You listen as the woman hums a lullaby while shaping bread into spirals. She pauses, then lifts a piece of dough, twisting it to resemble a cat with arched back and pointed ears. A household charm. For luck, maybe. Or just habit. The fringe belief here, quirky but documented, is that some Egyptians thought cats could detect the evil eye. That if someone with bad intent entered a home, the cat would hiss or flee. If the cat lingered, you were safe. And if the cat curled near your newborn blessed child. Historians still argue whether this belief was tied strictly to Bastet or whether it was older, more primal. Cats had guarded grain stores long before they guarded hearts. You leap to the roof of the home as you often do to observe the day unfolding. You see a neighbor scolding a dog for digging up onions. Another woman chases goats away from her garden. All across the rooftops, cats stretch yawn-stalk lizards. One glares at you as if you've trespassed on his nap spot. You ignore him. As midday heat settles in, the family inside dozes on mats. You lie atop the clay oven, warm and vibrating. Your ears twitch at the sound of distant drums, a festival maybe. Or a procession for Bastet, though you're far from Bubastis today. Still, even here in a quiet back alley of Thebes, or Memphis, or some nameless village lost to history, your shadow stretches long. The man of the house returns from the fields, shaking dust from his feet. He sees you and nods solemnly. Then he murmurs, "Protector of the house." No sarcasm, no joke, just fact. You've seen this before farmers pouring out the first drop of their beer for the house cat, offering the choicest rat as a gift, whistling to cats before opening their granaries. You're guardians, sure, but you're also part ritual, part rhythm. There's even a phrase some old men still mutter under their breath when a cat walks into the room. There goes the God who forgives us in our sleep. You'll take it. You rise and stretch tail high and saunter back inside where the family is waking. The child rubs his eyes and pats the mat beside him. You allow yourself to curl there. He begins to whisper secrets into your ear. That's another strange little habit these humans have. Whispering to cats. Not orders, but confessions. Like they think you're priests who won't tell, or spies who might. You blink slowly, absorbing every word. A sibling he resents. A friend he misses. A carving he broke last week and blamed on the wind. You keep his secrets, always. Outside, the afternoon turns soft and golden. You move to the window ledge, watching the shadows lengthen. A woman passes by with a basket on her head and a kitten curled inside it. She sings as she walks. The song is older than either of you. You know it by heart. It's the one that goes, "Let the cat see the moon, and the house will know no sorrow." Later, as twilight falls and oil lamps flicker awake, you perch on the threshold. The man of the house scatters a few drops of beer onto the ground beside you. "Drink with me, sacred one," he says with a grin. You lick a paw. He takes that as a yes. A neighbor passes, sees you, and bows slightly. Not to the man, to you. A small act, a big meaning. Even in the most ordinary homes, the magic of you endures. You're not owned, but you're loved. You're not trained, but you're trusted. You don't speak, but they listen. And in return, you stay a little while longer. You fall asleep beside the fire, warmth against your fur. The scent of barley thick in the air, the boy's hand resting gently on your back. Tomorrow you may visit a priest or a palace, but tonight you belong to this house, this family, this small corner of the vast, dusty world where cats walk not behind humans, but beside them. Where you're not just a creature of the gods, you're part of the people too. You wake just before dawn again, always just before dawn when the sky is bruised with hints of indigo, and the clay walls sweat coolness before the desert remembers to be hot. The boy is still asleep, drooling slightly into his pillow mat. You refrain from judging. Barely. You stretch slowly, one paw at a time, claws extended, then leap lightly to the windowsill and out into the alley. The city is stirring. Not loud yet, just whispers, like Egypt is holding its breath for the new day. Today, your paws take you along the river. You walk the thin edge of the Nile where the reeds crackle and frogs blink up at you with wet, dumb faces. A fisherman nearby whistles a tune off-key. He tips his head when he sees you. "Watch the boat," he says, half kidding. You hop in anyway, landing softly beside the baskets of fish. He laughs. "All right, fair trade." So, while he casts his net, you supervise. Occasionally, you sniff a mullet, or yawn dramatically. You are, after all, not just a common feline. You are part of a vast story, one even the boatman doesn't fully grasp. It's funny how, no matter where you go in this civilization, the story of cats is stitched into everything like gold thread through linen. The temples, the households, the necropolises, but also the markets, the schools, the barges. Cats wander freely across class lines. You don't belong to pharaohs or peasants. You drift between. The fisherman offers you a small fish. You ignore it. He shrugs and eats it himself. He doesn't mind. In fact, he seems vaguely honored to share breakfast with you. In the market nearby, a woman braids her daughter's hair while telling her a story. You pause and listen. It's about the day Bastet turned into a lion and roared the world clean. The child asks, "But why did she become gentle again?" Because the mother says she remembered how it felt to be held. You blink. That one stays with you. Mainstream historians sometimes miss this part of the feline mythos, the emotional connection. They note the temples, the statutes, the animal cults. But they often understate just how personal this reverence was. People didn't just admire cats. They felt something. Comfort, familiarity, maybe even envy. Because here you are, self-contained, graceful, never worried about taxes or inheritance or impressing crocodile-headed gods. You just are. And that's power. Quirky tidbit time. Did you know Egyptian priests had to be ritually clean to enter temples? But cats could walk in any time. Didn't matter what they stepped in. Not even if they had just knocked over the sacred wine jug. They were divine loopholes in furry form. One priest even wrote that cats could see the secret parts of gods and not be burned. That's right. You've got backstage passes to eternity. You hop down from the boat and continue your journey. The morning has thickened. Sun beginning to press its thumb into the earth. The streets of the town grow busier. Carts, creaking donkeys, braying vendors, shouting prices in voices rough from 1,000 mornings. A group of scribes walks past, laughing at a joke you missed. One wears a cat amulet around his neck. Another has Bastet inked onto his palm, a tattoo he probably hides from the high priests, but kisses when no one's looking. Historians still argue whether that was common. Were cat amulets everyday tokens or reserved for clergy and elites? The record scratches both ways. Some tombs show whole families wearing them. Others suggest they were costly and exclusive. You think the answer is simple. People made space for cats however they could. You slip into a courtyard where two elderly women sit weaving linen. They murmur to one another, hands moving like river water. One looks up, sees you, and smiles. She drops a pinch of herbs onto the stone for you. "Bastet, keep your coat smooth," she whispers. You nudge her ankle gently before curling beneath the weaving frame. You've always liked these two. They hum to the rhythm of their work. Their fingers smell like nettle and sun. The cloth they weave has tiny motifs: lotus flowers, jackals, falcons, and cats. A border of cats dancing in looped repetition, some with earrings, one chasing a sun disk, you over and over again. It's not vanity if it's accurate. Later, the women roll up the finished bolt and prepare it for trade. Probably headed to a merchant's stall or maybe even a priest's robe. You stretch and follow the path of the fabric like a ghost trailing scent. You find it again at the temple gates being inspected by a severe-looking buyer with a crooked nose. He holds the cloth up, then smiles. Yes, this one pleases the eye. He doesn't mean his eye. You watch as it's whisked away into the temple, past the guards, into rooms that smell like incense and polished obsidian. You could follow it in, but not today. Today, you're drawn toward the harbor. Ships creak at the docks, unloading bundles of papyrus wine jars and crates of dried figs. Cats swarm the harbor, more than a dozen. Some born here, some stowaways. They groom tussle-flirt snooze in shady crates. A merchant with a sunburned neck shouts and gestures at a calico who has commandeered his sandal as a nap spot. He eventually gives up and switches sandals. You blend in, weaving through sailors and bundles until you find a perch atop a painted barrel. A sailor nearby is telling a story about the time a ship nearly sank until a cat meowed, and the storm stopped. He swears by it. His shipmates nod like they've heard it before. Maybe they have. This belief that cats can influence storms or predict them isn't in every scroll, but it lingers. A salty fringe tail traded like an old coin. Some say cats carry bits of Ra's fire in their eyes, able to blind demons or calm wind. Others just believe you're lucky. Either way, when a ship leaves Egypt's shore, it's rare to find one without at least one cat aboard. You glance at the horizon where sails bloom like petals. Maybe you'll leave one day too. But not yet. You leap down your tail, trailing behind like a comet, and disappear back into the city's soft roar. Another day, another wander. No leash, no temple schedule, just instincts, and sun, and the scent of fish in the air. The Egyptians may have loved their gods, their gold, their afterlife, but they loved you too. You, the real and the myth, the purring contradiction, the living deity that still steals leftovers and naps through sermons. You are not a symbol. You are the thing itself. Evening, once again, spills across the city, as slow and syrupy as honey poured from a tilted jar. You wander through the twilight like a whisper that refuses to fade, brushing past walls still warm from the sun, glancing at doorways where you're always welcome, always watched. The air cools, now softens, and the Nile reflects the blush of dusk like polished obsidian. Your paws carry you toward the outskirts, away from the chatter and incense, toward the edge of memory. You pass tall, silent columns and crumbled statues with moss in their mouths. The city is old. But you've been older longer. Tonight you return to a place even quieter than the temples, the necropolis. Rows of tombs carved into desert rock, half swallowed by drifting sand. Some are grand, still guarded, still bright with old paint. Others are nearly forgotten, their guardians long gone. But here, among the dead, your steps are light and your whiskers twitch with a strange comfort. This is not a place of sorrow to you. It never was. You slip between crumbling walls, hop onto a slab engraved with hieroglyphs, and blink slowly. Somewhere deep inside, a family places food and flowers for their ancestors. You hear the murmur of prayers, the clink of small coins. And in the dark, a cat, one of your own kind, purrs beside a carved image of Bastet. This isn't coincidence. In many tombs across Egypt, cats were buried with humans not as possessions but as companions for the journey beyond. Mummified, wrapped carefully sometimes with golden masks or little linen ears shaped by hand. Their sarcophagi were small, delicate, and often inscribed with prayers. May your journey be watched by Bastet, one says. Protector of the threshold, says another. Even in death you were not forgotten. You were brought along. Mainstream archaeologists confirm this. Thousands of cat mummies have been found in Saqqara and Bubastis alone. Some buried with care. Others mass-produced offerings sold to pilgrims. That part's a little grim, sure. Like spiritual vending machines. But not all. Not yours. You pause at a niche where a small cat statue sits, its body, sleek, its eyes still gleaming with inlaid crystal. You remember this one. A temple cat honored in life, worshipped in death. A priestess used to rub its head before every ceremony. Now it watches over silence. There's a breeze now, just a whisper of sand shifting along stone. You sit, tail curling neatly, and close your eyes for a moment. You could fall asleep here among ancestors and echoes. But not yet, because even now, long after the gods have faded and the temples have cracked, the cats of Egypt remain. You're not gone. You're just relocated. In Cairo's alleys, in the shade of crumbling ruins, in the hearts of tourists who swear a street cat winked at them just as they made a wish. Even in modern homes, plastic bassettes still grace shelves. Tabby cats still knock things off tables with sacred precision. Somewhere, a girl reads about ancient Egypt for the first time and names her kitten Pharaoh. She doesn't know why, only that it feels right. Historians still argue whether this love for cats was purely spiritual or deeply practical. Were they divine guardians or rat chasers with benefits you've never needed them to choose? You've always been both. Because in the end, what the Egyptians gave cats was not just worship, it was recognition of your mystery, your duality, your refusal to be tamed even by gods. You rise and walk again, this time tracing the edge of a burial wall where tiny paw prints are preserved in dried mud. Centuries old, still clear. A kitten must have wandered across the wet clay before it hardened. A small act, immortalized, just like you. You reach the top of a dune, the city behind you, now the stars beginning to blink open overhead. The desert stretches ahead like a blank scroll, waiting for someone to write the next chapter. You sit, watch, listen. In the distance, a song rises, maybe from a festival, maybe from a dream. And, as always, you're both part of it and apart from it. Because you are Egypt's shadow and its spark. You are the hush before a god speaks and the flick of a tail as the gods change their minds. You are the reason the bread rose this morning and the reason the rats didn't eat it. You are mystery and comfort. A legend that still purrs. And somewhere a child falls asleep with your name in their ear, even if they don't know it yet. Even if they never will. And now, as the last grains of sand settle and the stars dust the sky like flecks of old silver, you stretch your limbs one final time. The desert is still. Egypt sleeps again, just as it has for thousands of years, wrapped in linen dreams and warm winds that whisper stories to the moon. You close your eyes, and the scent of baked stone and lotus lingers a moment longer. Somewhere distant, drums thump softly like a giant's heartbeat, and in the quiet you feel it the weight of time, yes, but also the gentleness of being remembered. You are not just a symbol on a wall or a statue tucked in a museum. You are breath and myth. Paw steps in the dust. A presence still felt in silent rooms and sunny windowsills. So rest now. Let the breeze wash over your fur like a lullaby. Let the gods of old hum to you from beneath their painted ceilings. Let the city fade behind its sandstone curtain until it becomes a single warm point of light. And let yourself drift, not away, just deeper. Deeper into the stillness that cradles everything. Into the quiet where Bastet paces, smiling faintly, watching over both the living and the long-loved. You are home, you are remembered, and you are safe. Good night.